for horizons unexplored. But if you yearn for horizons unexplored, for fellowship and purpose, for a cause. But if you yearn for horizons unexplored, but if you yearn for...
All right, okay, I was fucking around. That was me doing that. That wasn't an error. That was me. I was flashing the word yearn. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's still, I've got that on an SSD now as well, and it's supposed to be loading as fast as possible. But we don't hear her say if you yearn, do we? All right, I'll play the actual intro.
But if you yearn for horizons unexplored, for fellowship and purpose, for a cause worth dying for, to you, we...
No, look at that shit. It's dying. It is hardcore dying. I gotta figure that out. It's dying, man. Anyway, hello everybody. Welcome to GW3 Guild Wars 3 Daily. That's it. That's the show. Speaking of the PC dying and the hard drive dying, there you go. Look, shameless. I'm shameless. I've done it. We have a little a Guild Wars fund bar now, which beautifully goes directly over the top of my in-game mails and everything, so you guys can never see. Why can't I move the damn thing? Oh, it's because I locked it. That's why. You can't see when I get mail. Should we set it down there like that? Maybe. Is that worse? Because now it's not totally aligned to the top. I don't know. Yeah, I put a Guild Wars 3 PC fund up there. So what I'm saying basically is, if we get any donations, any super chats as this goes along, I will. But I'm going to pile them all up throughout these next 18 months. We're going to just put them all in a big pile, and we'll get a GW3 PC with those. Okay? That's the idea. I don't know how far we'll get or how quickly. Now, I've put 3K as the goal because as far as the Rampocalypse is concerned, I think the truth is for about 2,000 to 2,500, you can get a good PC, right? But, there's also like platform fees and stuff. So I think even if we put that to say 2,500, if we actually hit that, I think I would have less and it wouldn't cover it. So I don't know. I've put that I know I feel odd about that. I feel like that's really greedy, or I don't know. I felt very weird about this the last time we did this as well. 6 years ago? 7 years ago? It was a long time ago. So we'll see. But as people do their super chats, you'll actually see a little bar fill up. And we'll see how that looks. So yeah, and that is the default like goal bar that you get in Stream Elements. I didn't Guild Wars theme it. I didn't WoodenPotatoes theme it. It's just a bar. I could also potentially have put it across the entire top of the screen, but I don't know whether that's fun. Oh, we could have added like the XP bar at the bottom. Anyway, yeah. So that's it. And we've actually already had a few pay pigs in chat. Thank you, guys. Oh, why did I say that? Fuck. I'm not saying that word anymore. Rocket there with the €2. Thank you. Can I get some oink oinks in chat? Listen, I'll tell you what. If you guys do a nice hearty donation, I'll oink at you myself. Nightly Winter with the 100 SEK. I guess that's why it's already up at £18, is it? Dude, 100 SEK, thank you very much. There is no question, only yearning. I love the idea that we're going to end up associating Guild Wars 3 with the word yearn. You know, the end of Dragon's Daily series, we had that intro. Mortals are like little flames. I feel really epic about that line now. I really do. I'm like, oh, that's a cool moment. And I want to feel that for the Guild Wars 3 thing, but it's not going to happen, is it? It's not going to happen because we're just going to... It's just going to remind me of endless weeks of clowning about the word yearn. Arenanet, we need a new trailer so that people will... I'm moving up. I don't like it there. We need a new trailer so that we have a different word. Maybe. That dang boy with the $5... the $5? The $10. Thank you, dude. Pay pig here, and he's got a little pig emote. Do you know how many emotes there are that... Like, people have been doing the snouts, they've been doing the piggy bank there. I have a question. How do you think Guild Wars 3 will handle story delivery? I, for one, do not like the solo instances. I'm pretty over that format. How do you think they can innovate there? I don't know if I'm over the solo instances, but I'll tell you what this is kind of a... I don't know. Quite often I have to be careful with my critique and commentary because I don't want to rant. It might sound like I do, right? But genuinely, I don't want to just sit there and rant about shit that is very specific to me. Now, here's a weird thing, right? I play a lot of story co-op. I play it with friends in Discord. I play it with Kerry. I have fun, right? But in a group. And, okay, well, let me take that back. I don't have fun. It's shit. And for years it's been shit. Because they don't scale the instances. So I play with people who, they will only ever be in Ascended gear. They will let Snow Crows dictate their every button press and their every fucking stat. They're not in a raid. It doesn't matter. But that's how, they don't have fun unless they're doing that, right? So what happens is we go into these instances with quickness and alacrity and might and shit, right? And just nuke everything. I literally stand there AFK, basically, when I'm playing co-op with them. And by the way, it's been like this for years. Like 6, 7, 8, 9 years. That's been my experience. If I'm not let's playing or playing just purely on my own, which is very rare, my experience of the story is terrible because everything just dies straight away. That, to me, that is my biggest problem with the story. It's not necessarily the solo instances or just the idea of instances. It's how Arenanet have just completely abandoned the idea of fun co-op gameplay. You know a game that I'm looking forward to coming out this summer? Halo Campaign Evolved, and I'm looking forward to playing that shit co-op. Because it's fun, you know, you can click it up to Heroic, you can click it up to Legendary, and it's cool. It's a good, meaningful experience. Guild Wars 2 has never given me that, and I think it's shameful for a multiplayer game. It's shameful. I think it's terrible. It's barely engaging solo, but on that one, I understand that it's because, you know, I know a good amount about the game, and you know, I myself run good builds. Oh, I was trying to trigger the start there, but instead we left. You know, and when I say good builds, I don't just mean net decking raid builds. What I mean is I build my own, like, solo gameplay builds and stuff, right? Where I have my, you know, I'll run Pirate, Queen, Relic and stuff. So there, I don't know. There, I feel like I'm not allowed to make an argument because there are new players and quieter players and, you know, for all of those reasons. What is my actual stats here? Oh, I can't see while I'm in combat. I don't know really what I'm doing on this build. Am I actually a heal druid right now? Because that's not good. I'm on heal druid stats, but well, I'm not a druid obviously. I'm a gale shot, but I have a staff on for some reason. So I don't know what's going on. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of the big thing for me. Otherwise, when we just critique the idea of the solo instances in general, there's not like a unanimous like level for that. This is really cringy. I don't have anything bound properly. There's not like you know, there's very different playing solo instances in the personal story. Some of which are terrible during like the race arc or whatever. They're truly awful. Here you go, Berserker, Claw, and with Gale Shot. There we go. That's a bit better. Oh, it's because we changed the armor to have the fancy armor, which I got a lot of compliments about, by the way. You know, some just look absolutely awful. But then there's better ones. You know, the end of Path of Fire with Balthazar and stuff. That shit's amazing. So I don't know. I guess what we have to do is we have to look broadly at just how Arenanet's done over the years. And we can say, do we think that their solo instances are good enough? What are you advocating they do instead? Dungeons? Only dungeons? I think any moment is a good opportunity to rewrite how they do things and figure out what worked and what didn't work with Guild Wars 2. Will they lean into the personal story? Will they lean out of the personal story? I don't know. That's a big question that I guess we'll see. Right, sorry, I'm going to move on here because we're getting a lot of fucking donations here. Only 1,500 of these to go. Oink, oink, with another €2 there. Thank you very much for that. Or, again, if there's a big platform fee. And I don't actually know what the platform fee is, but if it's like 30%, that's quite the cut. We'll have to see. But thank you. Nightly Winter with the 10 gift memberships. 10 WP... WP 10 gift memberships. Thank you very, very much for that. Wow, I'm flubbing my words a lot lately. Kinky Mao with the £10. Thanks very much. Can't contribute much right now, but you do deserve a new PC. Well, thank you. That's very nice. Listen, I can get by without a new PC, but I do want First of all, I'm sick of the Guild Wars footage not being high enough frame rate. And like right now, you're not looking at good reflections, you're not looking at good shadows, you're not looking at good culling. I really thought, you guys, it feels like it just happened. I was doing the Lunar New Year festival, doing exactly this. It was like during the Icebrood Saga. It was in the run-up to End of Dragons. So yeah, I guess that was half a decade ago. But to me, it's like we were just here, and I feel really fucking awkward about this, because it's like, hold on, didn't we just try to get a good-looking PC? And we did, and this is better than my old one looked. I don't know. I guess what I'm really hoping, because the last time we got a PC, it was kind of in that awkward step right before the X3D processors, which are the real big winners, especially for Guild Wars. So I'm hoping... Wow, he's really chunking me. I'm hoping... When do I get a Shrike? I need to hit the 5. There's Shrike. I love that fucking skill. No, I have no muscle memory for a real rotation on this at all. This is like the worst class I could be streaming on, but there you have it. Yeah, I don't know. X3D came out, and X3D is really good, and I'm not on an X3D processor right now. So hopefully we see that. And, you know, that's just another big advantage of Guild Wars 3. We want it to look good. We want it to run well. And the reality is I'm on a 30 series GPU right now. They don't run like the DLSSR and DLSS and all that kind of shit very well. But the 50 series does, so I don't know. I'm also wondering if anyone wants to give me any news. If we get close to this goal anytime soon, I would love to hear from you guys if I should wait, you know, like 2-3 months, if there's going to be a mid... You know, like the 50 series is, what, a year and a half old at this point? Are they going to do, like, supers that have a bit more VRAM or something? You know, I'm not in any rush. This really, for me, is about Guild Wars 3 and having very good footage for Guild Wars 3. And since we're doing a daily show leading up to it, we'll see. But thank you. That's very generous of you. Thank you very much. And listen, I don't want anybody to donate who can't afford it, right? Obviously, prioritize yourselves. Don't get strapped into something that you shouldn't really be doing. Thank you. What have we got next? KR Nelk says, can't catch these live, so you'll watch this later. Cheers. Hey, it's good to see you, and you're welcome to. Obviously, I view all the VOD viewers every bit as much as the community as the people who make it live. And, you know, I'm spending just as much time, if not more time, reading the YouTube comments than I do the live chat. That's the sad truth. Because while I'm live, I'm fucking playing the game, and I'm not catching half of them. Sorry. But it's the... My God, I keep miscasting the skill 4 because it's ground targeted. There we go, Shrike. And we dip out. Well, we could pop the 2 again, I guess. One with the 5. Ugh, I really want a stun break. I don't enjoy builds without stun breaks. Next we have Eden Renoic. Holy shit, and you just got a crown, a #1 crown. That's DKK. What is that? 200 DKK? Holy shit, guys, we've made 100 quid already. What the fuck? Thank you so much. You didn't drop... don't drop a comment. Don't drop a donation without a question, please, for the love of God. That really angers me. Oh, man. What do I say to you? Thank you? Jesus. Yes, thank you very much. 50 bucks from BR Spees. I'm not a pay pig. I'm a fund chud. A fund chund. A fund chud. Thank you very much. Cheers, Tatos. So glad to be... having fun speculating and dreaming up the next great Guild Wars with you and the community, ... Oh, man. That's very awesome, isn't it? Yeah, this is good. This is a good time. I'll see you guys in a few months, right, when we've had no news. Or worse, we've had a lot of bad news. What could they reveal that everyone hates? And it's just a really salty, toxic, bitter sort of atmosphere. What could they do? What's the most likely thing that they could do that would really sour the atmosphere pre-release? I think a mandatory sub fee would be one thing, and they've already come out immediately and said that's not going to be a thing, so that's good. But what else could they do then? What could they really fuck people off with? I don't know. But anyway, when we're there, the wholesome atmosphere will be gone. And we'll see how we feel then. David NTP with the two bucks. Thank you very much. And that's very generous. And look, you guys who already have the membership spuds, you know, you guys don't need to feel obligated whatsoever. I know. 420.69, the two meme numbers, but you're missing 67, man. 67 is the new meme number. All right. Come on, give me more feathers. Want more feathers. There we go, Shrike. I don't even know what traits I'm using. I also forget what the elite is. I'm putting a stun break on in a minute. I know, yeah, with the 420.69, thank you so much. He says, for the PC, also have some cool coins I could send you. Let's make it happen. Do you really? No, I don't want to take your coins. Look, the coin collecting thing is like, I want it as a hobby where it's like, I can actually do it. I can noodle, I can hunt for them. Just buying them online feels like it kills the magic. Just being given them online feels like it kills the magic. I'm happy to trade. Is it a UK coin collection? Really? What do you have? I'm just curious about what that is. Our buddy! It's good to see you, our buddy. That's 35R. And he says that's worth about £5. Thank you, dude. Pay Pig wants to see red bar larger. Okay, oink oink. And he throws. Yeah, look, guys, you can either ask me a comment or you can call yourself a pig. Oh, I honestly said to myself I wasn't going to talk about that anymore. Questioners hate Dono just to annoy you. Fuck's sake. That's not got an oink in it either. He's now up to 6 in separate little donations. Thank you, dude. Osiris with the $9.99. Thank you. He says killing the dragons was a huge world-building mistake. They were a part of the world itself. It feels like an ecological disaster. Replacing Zaitan with a Arenanet would be okay, but not all. Changed my mind. Well, hold on. What are you talking about? Are you giving a narrative critique or are you giving a lore? Like a state of the world type thing. If you're giving a narrative critique, I think I disagree. I think the Elder Dragons were written and were introduced to this franchise to be destroyed. I think it's just a question of how they do it, right? And do they do, because we replaced them all with Aurene. Could there have been a better story told, a more Marvel style story told where we're building up the Avengers? We have Aurene, and we have Shiny, and we have the transfigured Bram, and the transfigured Kaith for Morgemoth and all that shit. I don't know. Could that have been cooler? It all depends on execution, really, for me. If you're talking about in-universe, I think that actually that's a very exciting and interesting question. Is Tyria safe and comfortable and happy now? I mean, Aurene is kind of like a password manager, right? You know, like I was talking about how my password database almost went up in flames and I was shitting myself, and now I've got a whole new setup going. You know, password managers are amazing, but they do represent a single point of failure, don't they? They represent... Oh, yeah, Shrike is amazing with the AoEs, right? I haven't really looked at this since the fucking VOE press a few months ago. You know, is Aurene a threat? Will Vlox go to Aurene's sleeping body and tap into her and, you know... Will someone in the future... Could that be a storyline for Guild Wars 3? Guild Wars 2, sorry, in the future? Could be. God, I'm fucking up which game it is all the time in every which way imaginable. Ugh. Apparently earlier I referred to Guild Wars 1 as Guild Wars 3. Oh dear. Yeah, so I don't know. For now it's working. The big magical battery hiding somewhere out there below the land. Kind of reminds me of like ending the Divinity games where they really fuck with Source and what you do with Source to distribute it to the world. And then they have a very different like status quo later. Here we go. Is this the last one, the Salisbury Dragon? I'm really hating my commentary right now because I can barely talk because I'm trying to play a class I don't know how to play while reading donations, while catching up on things that I wanted to say. What else we got? Futian with $5. Thank you, Futian. Saying I'm a cash cat. A cash cat. Cash cat or pay pig? Which one do we prefer? I don't know. Let's go with cash cat just because it doesn't have the sexual elements to it, you know. I'm just very nervous about that term because I don't know how like debauched it is. I don't know whether I'm sitting here with a stream that starts saying sponsored by Arenanet And then I'm talking about, you know, felching level stuff. I don't know, or whatever. Do you get what I mean? Like, I don't know where we are with this. Don't talk about things you don't know. All right, there we go. Victory. The battle is concluded. Haha, we got the Iceborne chest. We're done. Let's get the hell out of here. Whew. Anyway, yeah, Cash Cat. Thank you. Banjo with the £5. Thank you, Banjo. Vinny the Cleric with £5 as well. Says, no question, but a Guild Wars 2 joke. What do you call an Asuran city invaded by the Skrit? Ratatouille. What? I don't get it. Ratatouille is like an Italian dish, isn't it? Or is it a French dish? What is ratatouille? Isn't it like pieces of vegetable steamed and stacked together with maybe a kind of pasta with it? Is that right? No? Look, the only thing I know about ratatouille is from the movie Ratatouille, where Anton Ego eats it, and then you know, it changes his life, and he's reminded of, you know, it's doesn't the lady in the movie say that's a peasant food? It's a peasant dish. But it reminds him of being a peasant boy. And then obviously we get the greatest outro to a movie ever, where you get to hear his review, and you get to hear his perspective on what it means to be a critic and the importance of taking risks and defending the new. That's what we're doing with Guild Wars 3, guys, right now. Yeah, I don't know. But what has that got to do with the Skrit? Are the Skrit in poverty? I get the rat a bit. WP ... You definitely spoke about the film before in the past. Oh, I get what you mean. Okay, the rats in the film are kind of acting like Skrit. Oh, no, I get it. Yeah, I get it. I got it the whole time, guys. I was memeing. That was a joke. I was clowning around. That's what we call rage bait. All right, I just did that to provoke some responses. Someone out there has paused the video and just typed in all caps in the YouTube comments, oh my god, how don't you get it? Seeing what that is, that's good for the algorithm. That's what I was doing. I was just this is like when I told people I didn't understand why they were giving a Volkswagen Beetle away. Because I didn't know it was a Volkswagen Beetle. It's just bait, guys. Don't you worry about it. All right. I'm actually quite smart. You're right. You're right. The rats kind of work like a hive mind. Yeah, to be fair to me, there is only like one scene at the end of the movie where they act like a hive mind. And they're not really like a super genius. They're just, you know, it's just cool to see rats working in a kitchen. And Skrit aren't actually rats, guys. I know you call them rats, but they're not actually rats. It's just because I'm a law genius and I think of them as their own race, their own species. I would never consider them rats. Do you know what? You shouldn't consider a Skrit a rat. That is prejudice. All right? And I was taught at school never to be prejudiced. I was taught all of it. Prejudice is the more important thing to learn about, right? And what do we see happen in the most recent hit expansion, Visions of Eternity, where the Hole Gardeners get disease from rats, and they think that poor exiled Skrit in that cave, that poor guy, they blame it on him. And then what happens? He becomes the villain. He's actually an enemy in a dynamic event. That's so by the way, that's a good example of like modern Guild Wars 2 writing that I really like. It's funny, it's sweet, it's sad, it holds a mirror up to the real life. I like that event and that little story a lot. That fucking thing about that exiled Skrit, because they blame the disease from the rats on it, that's cool. So that's why I didn't get the joke. It wasn't rage bait. All right, you caught me. I just didn't get it, but it's because it's a bad joke. All of that said, thanks for the £5. Where are we already? We've had £172, guys. We are. What is that in percentages? If we had earned £30, we would be 1% of the way there. So what do we need to get? We need to be at £300 for 10%. So we're half of that about already. We've earned like we're 5% done on day one. Isn't that mental? That's very exciting. And I don't want to seem ungrateful for that. What are the top 3 things you want to see in Guild Wars 3? Oh my god, dude. Really? Okay, that's an essay. The top 3 things. Okay, if we go to the top 3 things, and that was from, sorry, I should read your name at least. Gemin KLY with €5.99. Oh, we want to go to early game maps, by the way, because we're doing the Guild Wars 3 event. Let's do Caledon. Caledon makes a lot of sense because we're discussing the Sylvari a lot lately. Listen, if we're going to the very, very top 3 things, we actually get more philosophical, I think, than anything else. And like I'm not going to say something like, oh, I want to see this backpack come back. I'm not going to say I want to see the Elementalist. I'm not going to say I want a particular race. I'm not even going to say I need the setting to be Tyria, because I didn't need it to be Tyria. When we get to the very high level, we start asking questions like, okay, why am I playing this and not other MMOs? Indoctrination? The fallacy of sunk costs? No. Let's not be a cynic here. Let's not be a cynic. Why am I playing this, not other MMOs? What is it I really like about Arenanet? Why am I here? And I think business model is a big thing. So, like, top 3 things, it has to be... Look, and you guys might call me a fanboy for this, right? And you might see I'm an idiot for this. But truly, I trust them not to do, like, pay-to-win shit. I know some of you will argue that, like, the waypoint selector is pay-to-win, and, you know, they're really toxic with the gem store, with bags, and with salvagers, and stuff like that. But I honestly, I think that they're fine. I think you can get way worse in other MMOs that are juggling sub fees and really aggressive microtransactions and huge box fees and all that stuff. I think that the business model has always appealed to me. Yes, there are considerable downsides, and yes, I'm a fan of an idea of an optional sub so they can lay off of the gem store, because I do think there are a lot of things about the gem store that I'm not enjoying lately. But overall, that would be one of the top things I want to see in Guild Wars 3. What else? What's some more gameplay focused things? Because that's kind of a boring answer, isn't it? I think strong build craft. I think Guild Wars 2 has let me down in many ways with its build craft. And like how much of it actually matters for playing the game. Guild Wars 1 is a very strong game in terms of like collecting skills, building your own character's identity, using those, and the party comps as well once you get lots of heroes. Guild Wars 1 has its problems with the learning curve and stuff, but Guild Wars 1 did it very well, and there have been periods of Guild Wars 2. Not forever. There you go, there's the Guild Warrior shoulders. That's it, we've done it. We have done the Summer Game Fest Guild Wars 3 event. We have the cape, we have the 3 guaranteed unlockers, and we have the shoulders. Should we wear it all? Let's do the fashion templates. No, don't do that. What do? I go wardrobe. I go here. I go here. I go here. And then here, here, here. Look at that shit. We're basically playing Guild Wars 3 at this point. We're basically playing it. Yeah, I think so. So for example, you know, who in chat was there when they first did the specialization patch? Do you guys remember how fucking exciting that was? How cool those traits were? How exciting it was to see the devs mouse over all of the traits? How fun it was as well with Heart of Thorns to see the first elite specializations? They were very, very, very good. And at launch they did okay as well. Guild Wars 2 is more of a mixed bag than Guild Wars 1 was. But there have been periods with Guild Wars 2 where the build craft's been very strong and very exciting and very good. So that's on my top 3. It's not Guild Wars to me if they don't have a strong identity for that. And very happily, what have we seen from the early Guild Wars 3 press already? What have we seen? We've seen that they've hinted at like skill capturing comeback, and they've talked about build stuff being there. So that's good for me as well. That would be definitely one of my top things. Like, I'm not interested in playing it if it doesn't feel like a fun RPG and a customizable RPG in terms of the characters, the way I interact with the world. And I think where Guild Wars 2 has always fallen down goes back to what I was just saying a second ago about how bad the co-op gameplay is in those solo story instances. It fails as an RPG these days because nothing matters, because it's so easy and it's so baseline, and the item nomenclature has been destroyed and all that shit. I don't want to see Arenanet mess all that stuff up again, and I think they've got a lot of lessons to learn, so fingers crossed with that. Number 3, top 3 things. So what have we got? We've got the monetization schemes and business model generally. We've got buildcraft. See, some of you guys are going to say like dodge rolling and active combat and free and joy of movement and all those things. Actually, they're not that high on my list. They're not. And they're on the list probably somewhere, but they're not in the top 3. Okay, I'm going to say a controversial one. I think I know what my other one is. I think I know what it is. Oh, it's so hard. I want to go on a fucking adventure, man. I want to have a big-ass world to go in, immerse myself in, and I want a really long, meaty, fun adventure where I feel like my character's growing and building and getting stronger the whole way. So I almost just said there, progression. I want a strong sense of progression from the game. I want a strong sense of progression so that people don't bitch about a lack of endgame. I want a strong sense of progression so that I, as a content creator, have stuff to cover, right? And that's a selfish bit, but hey, you are asking me personally. And I appreciate it. Content creators spend way too long no-lifing these games and they fall out of touch with everyone else. But it's just because I like RPGs. I like leveling. I like playing Pokemon to level my Pokemon. I like playing ARPGs to get stronger in scale. And I liked the fact that Guild Wars 2 went to 80 levels, not fucking 20. And I liked the fact that Guild Wars 2 introduced many more tiers of rarity, right? Guild Wars 1 just stopped at yellows, but this game said, hey, we'll do exotics. And then they fucked up the drop rate, so then they added Ascended later. I like all that stuff. I like fractals, where you could build your infusions up. But Arenanet... And now why the progression conversation's a little bit tricky. I like achievement points are basically the only thing that have kept me in the game recent years, right? It's really messy, though, because I think Arenanet are in a very different place to me with that, and therefore the community's in a different place to me with that. Where with the one hand, they give you 80 levels, but with the other hand, they're so scared of asking people to engage with it, you level in, like, the blink of an eye, right? And it's like... Look, the God's honest truth, guys, is, and I hope you don't hate me for this and feel like, oh, fuck this, right? The truth is, I'm much more of a Korean grinder MMO type guy than I am a Western, give me all the rewards really quickly type guy. Even if we're not talking about, you know, me as a content creator, I kind of like grinding. I kind of like leveling. I like progression. You know, my other MMOs include heavy hitters such as Perfect World and fucking RuneScape, and I kind of like that stuff. So if Guild Wars 3, here's a controversial thing for me. If Guild Wars 3 comes out and says we're not having levels at all, Guild Wars 1 we did 20, Guild Wars 2 we did 80. For Guild Wars 3, we're just going to go to 0. We don't believe in it at all anymore. Fuck all that. We're not having a fractal system. We're not having ascended gear. We're not having levels. It's pure sandbox. If they come out and say that, I will be disappointed. That's not the game I want. I want them to lean into it. I want them to stop letting this anti-grind philosophy and respecting your time mindset get in the way of good, meaningful, savvy retention practices. But what have we seen in the early press on this one? We've already seen they've trotted some of those lines out. They've already talked about respecting your time. And so we'll see. I think that you've asked me what my 3 things I'm looking forward to are, and I've now given you a thing in there that is actually, I'm on shaky ground. I'm on shaky ground, and look, I get it, guys. A lot of you guys just want your rewards quickly. You want to log in for 1 hour after you've put the kid to bed, and you finally just get to chill, and you want to go from level 1 to level fucking 15, right? And you just want to get through it quickly. My argument is that if you go through it so fast, you only get a few minutes or an hour or 2 of gameplay. What is it really adding to the product? And at that point, I think if Arenanet make that same analysis, they'll probably remove levels entirely. I don't know. By the way, we have some actual news to get to today. There's an article. They might have talked about that. It's about their philosophies. So yeah, there you go. What else have we got? What else have we got here? Bomber Fox 8360 had a donation for £5. Thank you, Bomber Fox. He says Guild Wars 3 will be an open world survival crafting battle royale releasing on mobile devices and partnered with Epic Games. That's how? Yeah, okay. Look, they announce all of those things. Brilliant. You're a genius. That's how we get to that will be streams of Debbies everywhere. I would look on anyone very cynically if you hear all of those things and they're sitting there saying it's gonna be amazing. Yeah. I think we won't see those terms. Very good one. Hardy83 with the Canadian $5. Plans for getting a PS5 Pro and Guild Wars 3 on that. I think you can stream from the PS5 itself to YouTube or Twitch. That's an interesting idea. It's sort of the same thing as Reforged, isn't it? Where really what I need to do is install it on my mobile and I need to get a controller. Fuck! I had a chance to get my controller yesterday and I forgot. Shit. I'll have to do that. It's sort of similar thing, isn't it? I don't know. If the money's there. Look, we're slowly working our way to a PC. Let's just work on that for now. But yeah, doing a bit of a review on how it plays on PS5 is definitely a point. It's funny, by the way. We haven't done any talk about this. Why is it only on PS5 and not Xbox? What's wrong with Xbox these days? What's going on? Do they not do hardware anymore? I swear I heard some rumors they were exiting the hardware world. And then finally, oh my god, John Sellers. John Sellers is the OG. If we do actually have a pay pig, genuinely, it's John Sellers. John Sellers has like solo funded the channel over the past how many months? Like every time I've gone live, every time John has given some gift memberships out. A lot of you guys will have memberships just because of John. John is like the legend. We were talking in Discord earlier about people having different crowns, right? Like, oh, you've been most active in the Discord, like with Tulip, with the modding the Discord, or hey, this person's been subscribed. You know, like we had Bardi there with a donation earlier with the South Park thing. I think of Bardi as like my oldest fan. I don't know whether that's right, but that's who I think of him as, right? Fucking John Sellers gets the pig crown if he wants it. He says, Chud Spud, pay piggy here, no question here. Dude, John, you're amazing. I don't know who you are or what you do for a living. But you're a legend, man. Thank you so much. And that's $100. $100 fucking dollars. Look at that. Oh my god. He's at the top of the leaderboard there. There you go. We're up at £246. Just in the intro. Thank you, guys. And listen, I don't want this to be too cringy and unwatchable for everyone in the VODs and stuff in the future, so I do apologize if I move on from the cash conversation a bit too much. I'm trying to strike a balance of being appreciative, but not also bagging the chat down. So there you have it. Thank you, everybody. And yeah, I think it'll be very cool to get a PC. We can slowly work on this up to the launch of Guild Wars 3. If we end up hitting that goal early, and I expect we'll slow down, probably, right? If we end up hitting that goal, I'll see what I can buy. But what I'd like to do, I don't want to buy a PC that is exactly as good as something I could have got a year and a half ago already. I want it to be at least a little further forward than that. So if anyone can teach me about what's going on there and whether it's really worth it and shit like that, I'm all ears. But yeah, overall, we'll just work towards it and we'll see what we can get. Because it's a weird time, isn't it? Normally, you expect the hardware to get cheaper as the months and years go along. But because of the RAM apocalypse, it's kind of not at the moment. And now I think we're all kind of scratching our heads thinking, are prices going to be flat? Are they going to get worse? They're not like scheduled to get cheaper for like at least a year, right? At least a year. Isn't the entire RAM supply bought up for like the next 2 years or something? And I don't know where we are with that. It's kind of an awkward time for Arenanet to be releasing Guild Wars 3, to be honest, because big PC releases, like everyone around now in the market is squeezed. But then again, they're releasing on PlayStation. That's probably a good sign, guys. The RAM apocalypse and their specific timing for Guild Wars 3 is probably a good sign that console players are going to be here in force in this community. After 20 years, this franchise will be opening the door to the console players. And we get to be snobs about them. Console peasant. No, don't do that. Nightly Winter again there. Wait, I say again. Didn't you do one earlier? You did do one. You gave some memberships earlier. Holy shit. 50 SEK. As a Guild Wars 2 casual, he says, Arenanet's anti-grind philosophy seems so off to me. Okay, so Nightly Winter says, as a casual, Arenanet's anti-grind philosophy seems so off to me because to me, Guild Wars 2 only has grinding for endgame, which seems so counterproductive. Yeah, look, there are some really interesting discussions that we can have here that I'm probably not smart enough to articulate off the cuff. But I want you guys to just consider, like, this whole respecting your time, anti-grind. Fundamentally, whether Arenanet says that to you or not, they want you to play the game regularly. They should not release a game where they're saying to you immediately, oh yeah, you only have to play it for an hour, go away. Like, you shouldn't push your own audience away. You should any time encourage and embrace your fans and allow them to engage more deeply with your product. That fundamentally, that has to be what they want, right? I mean, if we're at odds even at that level, at that very high level, I think we've got a real problem. But I think that's unbelievably naive to turn your back on that. To release an MMO, to release a live service game, right? And to say, yeah, we only care about... If you play for 1 week at launch and then you're gone, we don't care. That's mental. I know that there was that little thing where they were saying, you know, we don't mind if you play other games. Hopefully play the other games in our franchise. But let's be real. We're trying to build a community here. We're trying to be a part of the conversation when it comes to video games. We're trying to have a seat at the table. We're trying to make money to pay devs who have talent and will stick with us, right? So we're trying to run it as a store. I think it's mental to argue anything else. So fundamentally, they want you to play the game. So what does an anti-grind philosophy mean? What does respecting your time mean? What it really should just mean is, can you log in and easily have fun? That's what it should mean. You put the kid to bed and you log in. Do you have fun? And I think what Arenanet fundamentally misunderstood with both Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2 is this, right? Here's what they misunderstood when it came to only having 20 levels and when it came to having the flat leveling curve for the 80 levels and also letting you get experience for just unfogging regions and letting you get experience from crafting and letting you get a bonus experience from killing mobs and letting you have extra experience from, you know, XP boosters that were dropping as a part of rewards and all that kind of shit, right? What did they fuck up with these two things, with these accelerationist ideas? What Arenanet fundamentally understood is that leveling is fun. Arenanet were coming at it from a very classic MMO mindset. Now, here I'm going to be an actual boomer here for you all. Well, you know, not an actual boomer, right? I'm going to give you a real genuine take from someone who saw MMOs grow and who played MMOs as the scene and the genre was building. Leveling and XP systems got co-opted. They were being used in regular RPGs. You know, you play like Final Fantasy for the SNES or whatever, right? Where devs understood that it was fun. And then early MMO devs, they saw it and they said, we can just crank these numbers really fucking high to put people on these treadmills. And now they're only playing for the leveling up. And we get to just cynically retain them. And leveling in those games, in those formats, was not fun. These were basic, primitive games with very simple combat, poorly thought out combat often, not many other avenues for expressing yourself or playing around. They were effectively chat rooms where you had these boring, long, slow grinds that just kind of, that felt fun for the progression, but for no other reason, right? And it was like, okay, you're going to have to play for a week to get your next level in Maple Story or whatever, right? And they pushed the dial too far. And they did that just to keep you playing. Just to keep you on a treadmill. That's what Arenanet was attacking. When they talked about changing leveling and only having 20 levels, and when they had their flat leveling curve and all that shit I just mentioned for Guild Wars 2. That's what they were nervous about. But in being so nervous about that, they kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. They went, in my opinion, they went too far down the other side. And they sort of stopped relishing in the fact that progression is fun on its own. And let me just go back to this point here. Respecting your time. Can you have fun in Guild Wars 2 at level 70 instead of level 80? Now, when you come at it from a boomer mindset, when you come at it from a classic MMO mindset, where you're looking at early experiences in WoW, where everyone just wants to raid and stuff, and that necessitates that you hit level 60, and that necessitates you, and you have these big gates. I can't play with my friends because I'm not a high enough level. I can't catch up with my friends because I'm not a high enough level. Those were the avenues where Arenanet basically, they made a mistake. They kind of said, oh, you can't have fun unless you're max level. You can't have fun unless you level up fast. And what I don't think they've realized, but what I hope they've now realized in hindsight, is you actually can. It's kind of fun to raise the level cap over the years. You can have fun at level 70 if you've got a really badass combat system and a really cool build craft and really engaging enemies and a fun story and lots of side experiences you can go off to have and do, and scaling systems that mean that even if you're under-leveled, you can play with your mates anyway, because at the end of the day, you only have to be level 15 to see the Fire Elemental, and we're all going up to fight the Fire Elemental right now. You know, there were so many moving pieces to Guild Wars 2 that meant their fanaticism about their fears weren't really that founded, right? And it's not that I think they're bad devs. I think it's just that, you know, these are really complicated products and they couldn't see all of that come out. So anyway, those are the lessons I've learned over the years, and I think don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I like a bit of progression. So there I've tried to muddily talk my way through what I think's happening, and I wonder what the modern Guild Wars 3 designers are saying behind closed doors in private quiet rooms today. What did they say when they sat down and they started scripting out Guild Wars 3? That's kind of my view on it, my mindset on it, from a history of MMOs perspective. And what I feel Guild Wars 2 is lost, and I'm not going to hide from it. I still to this day think that the mastery system should have been built as a character-bound thing, because progression is fun, and I look for progression in these games. Right, moving on. I can just tell someone's raging at my arguments there. Wawalms with $5 says, you think Arenanet should add friction like classic WoW? Running to dungeon makes the world feel vast. Also, as a pay piggy, tell me how playable dwarves would work. Okay, the dwarf thing, well, what do you want to know? I mean, you'd play them, you'd be short like an Asura. There you have it. I don't know. Listen, I'm going to do a video, I'm pretty sure, which is like top 10 races I want to be able to play in Guild Wars 3, and the dwarves are going to be on there. I don't know what more you want. They're cool, and there's a question of like racial skills, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah. Should they add friction like classic WoW? I think the answer to that is no. Okay, just so that you guys know, I never really played classic WoW back in the day. I did a bit with a mate, but not much. I never had my own account and stuff. When WoW Classic came out a few years ago, I didn't do a stream series of it. I played that shit, and I fucking loved it. I loved classic WoW. This is like End of Dragons era WP. Going and playing classic WoW. I did do a video. I did classic WoW versus Guild Wars 1. I did an essay comparing the two products. I think a lot of the philosophies and mindsets and ideas about the scale of the world, the immersion, how immersion and like okay, here's classic WoW. It's like really preoccupied with simulating a real virtual world that you can go and live in. And it's no wonder that role-playing in that game is so fun. Like, it doesn't feel like software. It feels like an actual world to go and play and live in. Arenanet have never been about that. Sorry, they've tried, maybe, in some ways, but they've never done it well. Their philosophy, their mindset has always been much more like software-focused and access and... You know, you don't learn spells in Guild Wars by like in Guild Wars 2 by going to a wizard who teaches you how to do it and all this kind of shit. You just click buttons on the UI, right? You warp all over the world via waypoints in the UI. You swap districts. You know, it's very UI focused. And most modern MMO gaming is that way, right? So you can say that they were ahead of the curve in that. But I think that, you know, we call these games MMOs, but they're basically different genres. WoW Classic is a different genre of game to Guild Wars 1. It's a different genre of game to Guild Wars 2. And so then there's the question, okay, are they going to make Guild Wars 3 like classic WoW? I think the answer has to be no, right? Like, for those of you that don't don't know what you're looking at with this podcast right now or the community that you're in, you have to understand you're looking at the countercultural, hipster, anti-guys, right? World of Warcraft beat the world, and it had the world of MMOs. It was the king, right? It's still the king. And why? Because they have great ideas, right? And I fucking love WoW Classic. I see WoW Classic for what it is. It's a brilliant game. But Arenanet were never about that stuff. Never. They made Guild Wars 1 to stand in defiance of that. They made Guild Wars 2 to stand in defiance of that. And they will make Guild Wars 3 to stand in defiance of that. It would be a hell of a move to come at the community now in 2026 and say, actually, Blizzard was right all along. Here's what we've got. I mean, that would be the craziest U-turn. And look, if they can justify it, I would sit there and I would say, there you go, that's art. That's fearless art. That is the pursuit of a good experience in the face of all things. That's truly saying we were wrong, but I don't think it will happen. What question did you ask me? Should they add friction like Classic WoW? Yeah, look, I don't think you're going to see that. I think fundamentally they're going to stay from the philosophy of we don't believe in friction. And for those who like Classic WoW like me, for those who enjoy a bit of grind, you know, if you're really into those aspects of the genre, you're just going to have to look for another product. I don't think that we're ever going to be fully satisfied by that. There you go. That's a nice little loop back to what we were talking about earlier with progression. And look, I don't want to give the impression that Arenanet are wrong with that. It's just this is their house, this is their style. Asking the other world is not going to happen. I feel awful. I'm only able to read donations. I haven't been able to read the actual comments coming past. Jesus Christ. Let alone the fucking screenshots we've got. Wawalms. Oh no, that was already Wawalms. The next person is Look Q3O with 10 euros. Thank you very much. He says, for the Potato PC Fund. Thank you. Oh, I should have called it that, shouldn't I? The Potato PC Fund. There you go, guys. We're at 10%. £305 already. Look at that. Do you know how many 50p's we can get for that? I can buy a £250 bag of 50p's. I can get 550p's for that, guys. We can fund a 50p noodling video. What do you think? You guys will watch that, right? On WoodenPotatoes too? My face won't be in it, but my hands will. And my wrists. Seriously, that's crazy. I can't believe that. Skylight with £5. WP, you missed the true original Guild Wars endgame Fashion Wars. Yeah, but was it though? I don't believe it ever was. I don't believe it was ever a focus from Arenanet more than anything else. I was there for the press as they were releasing that game. I know what they were focusing on. I know what they cared about. And they wanted accessible, comfortable transmutation system. But that didn't even come in at release. That was a feature pack 1 thing. Transmutation shards. I remember from the alphas, guys. I remember having to buy transmutation shards from various karma vendors. I remember, I might even have footage of it buried on my screen, on my PC somewhere. I remember having to go to a vendor up here to buy transmutation charges, and they were like level gated. So if the gear was over too high of a level, you can use a certain type of charge. And they had not only level 10, 20, 30 transmutation charges, they had a level 90 transmutation charge. They had one that said for level 90, which suggested they might increase the level cap at some point. I remember that. I remember what they said pre-release about fashion, and they never used the term fashion wars or anything like that. They did do an article talking about modesty, and not overly sexualizing the outfits. There was a bit of conversation about that. And that was one of those things they got a lot of brownie points from the community from. You know, when you saw the ladies wearing the Seraph armor as opposed to Logan wearing the Seraph armor, her boobs weren't out and people were saying that's amazing. They actually got a huge amount of brownie points for that. Only for then people to decide that no, it still wasn't good enough in later years. And you had these utter prudes bitching about the slightest bit of fucking cleavage in the game, which was just blew my in the later years. No, I don't believe that Fashion Wars was ever a deep priority for them. I think that they had they did an article about the dye system, and the dye system was fantastic. But, you know, these were individual pieces that just came together because they had genius devs and great UX sentiments and ideas. But again, for most of the time running into Guild Wars 2, dies were character bound. They were not account bound. You got them daily from your home instance, and that shit was cool. And I liked all of those systems. You guys might say, oh, ew, but I'll tell you what, it was thrilling logging in every day and seeing what the new color you got that day was. It was fucking thrilling. It was very cool. They had a lot of good systems that were really good for retention and really would have kept Guild Wars 2 on the map. And then they just blew them all up because they thought, nah, give everyone everything. The stuff I'm saying right now is very controversial. People hate these opinions, but they are my opinions. What was I trying to say? Yeah, no, I view Fashion Wars as... I kind of hate the term, and I'll tell you why I hate the term. Because it was born from derision. It was born from snark. That's a snark word, guys. That's a fucking... I'll tell you what that is. That word comes from the era after release when people had blown through the dungeons, got everything that they wanted, had all their exotics because of the stupid drop rates, finished all their map comp, and they said, what do we do now? Where's the end game? There is no end game. And people snarkily said, the end game is to play with your fashion. It's not a term that I embrace. It's not something that I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is what I love about the game. The fact that people later said, oh, yeah, I love playing Barbie, and like blindly walked into the term, like, that's not a fun thing to me. No, fuck that. Fuck the idea of a game whose core you know, you can have it as a pillar of your game, fine. But, like, I don't want to talk about this as, like, a Barbie game. Not because I judge people for playing Barbie or whatever, but just because that's not to my taste. And I don't think it's a worthy substitute for a fun RPG. Seeing how your character looks is a cool part of RPGs, but it's not the beating heart of the RPG. And I wouldn't dare, as a dev, go online and say this is fundamentally what I'm aiming for. It's not what Arenanet were aiming for. It's all they had left. It's the scraps at the bottom of the barrel. I don't like Fashion Wars. And people like, it's one thing to then try and own it and say, oh, I love it. That's fine. It's another to say that's what the game was always meant to be about. No! Do you know how fucking cooked your brain has to be to have got to that point? To have slid down that far down the scale? No. Absolutely not. I will applaud and I will commend the anti-grind philosophy where it's due. And I will applaud, like, the die system. And I will applaud the early years where they weren't too shiny with the gear, right? And I will applaud that they weren't tacky. I don't believe in prudishness. I don't believe in American prudishness, right? And I'm not scared of human bodies, right? But at the same time, I do think that, you know, there is such a thing as being really fucking tacky. And I applaud the fact that they've never been tacky with this game, right? But I will never applaud Fashion Wars. And I will never say, oh, I hope Guild Wars 3 focuses on Fashion Wars as much as Guild Wars 2 focused on Fashion Wars. I don't believe it ever did. So there you go. There's my my little take, having been here and played through this shit. Next, what do we got? Again, thank you though, Skylight, for that. That was a good prompt. That got a bit of a rant, didn't it? Stuart Vant 7508. Thank you, Stuart, with the $50. Dude, when those red ones come in, or those dark coloured ones, it's crazy, isn't it? Here's to the new PC. I might have to get a new one for myself for Guild Wars 3. How do you think they should handle achievements and quests in Guild Wars 3? Oh, God, guys, what the fuck is this? We're an hour in. I've got news to cover. I've got questions. We got to get back to the Sylvari. Oh, okay. Right. How should they handle achievements and quests? Look, I can't give someone who's just donated 50 fucking bucks a small answer to that. How should they handle them? Okay, well, the first thing that springs to my mind is to put a quest log in the game. I'm pretty sure they'll do that as well. That's like such a black sheep of Guild Wars 2. Why did they move away from the quest log? We should not be questing through achievements. So terrible. Terrible stuff. They should have standardized, like, telegraphs. Like, what does it mean to be doing a side quest? What does it mean to be doing, you know, are there going to be green starbursts versus purple starbursts versus orange starbursts? Figure it out. I just applauded you for the die system. Now I have to admonish you for the questing and the quest log. Guild Wars 2 wanted to go all to dynamic events, and it got very big and excited about that. And look, I think 14 years have taught us that a hybrid approach is what we need. There has to be an actual quest log, and they have to figure out, what does it mean to telegraph someone to go to a place? Do they give you a big area and you walk in and then you play needle in a haystack? Do they have like a pity system built in? Personally, I played Horizon Zero Dawn 2 years ago and Horizon Forbidden West. No, I played Zero Dawn maybe 3 years ago and Forbidden West 2 years ago. I think they have really, really good methods of like quite immersive, good telegraphs and all that shit. That's what a quest log is to me. It's an actual functional mechanism for getting stories in there. And I want to see branches. I want to see alternate dialogue. I want to get back to the RPG element. And I'm very curious what Guild Wars 3 will do with that. Because they obviously... they flopped around like a dead fish when it came to the personal story and then gave it up. So what are you doing this time, Arenanet? What are you doing? Is it a personal story? Very excited to see what they have there. Which is why I want to get to this news. They have an article, everybody. Okay, and finally, Robin the Hood with $4.99. That's finally the last donation. Holy shit, guys. The biggest problem with Fashion Wars, he says, is they locked so much fashion behind the gem store. Not enough earning of sick gear. I agree completely that the gem store fundamentally ruins the idea of a... Okay, oh... Look, I will give you this, all right? Sorry, just to circle back to my Fashion Wars thing. I will give you this. They have always said... they have always prioritized a cosmetic, horizontal base rewards system. Okay, that is always true. I don't deny that. And look, if that's what Fashion Wars means to you, totally, that's fair enough, right? Like, I can't take that away from you. Even back in Guild Wars 1, Arenanet were always big on that. But to me, that was always about the anti-grind philosophy and not putting you on treadmills. And it was like, well, what do we reward people with? Fuck it, it's got to be skins, right? It was more a consequence of that than anything else. But yes, you guys are totally right that if that's what that Fashion Wars means to you, we don't grind for levels, we grind for skins. That's totally fair. And yeah, if that's the philosophy in Guild Wars 3, and I think it may well be, they're very likely to do it again. If that's going to be the philosophy, then they've got real questions to ask about microtransactions. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, but what we're experiencing in GW2 is not good enough. I want to see some changes. We're going to do a video at some point in Guild Wars 3 Daily. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about sub fees and microtransactions. Let me have a drink here. Oh, God. This episode felt really hectic. I don't know. I think I'm just nervous. Oh, my God. Okay, guys. So there you go. There's the intro. Thank you all. Wow, look at that. £308. I've always felt like you don't earn your loot and gear in Guild Wars 2 coming from games like Monster Hunter. Well, you really have to earn the price for the grind. Hopefully, here you just buy from the TP. Yeah, there's a lot wrong with the current setup. There's a lot wrong with it. I'm sorry, but like... Like, I could take this 300 quid we just raised. Do you know how fucking rich I'd be in Guild Wars 2 immediately with that? All the skins and crazy shit I'd have. And, you know, the company wins from that, I guess, in the short term, when someone can do that when they first install the game. But now what's their incentive to play dungeons? What's their incentive to make legendaries? What's their incentive to continue exploring and fucking with stuff? And, you know, getting the new map currencies and the new... Like, everything's just like... Look, we don't have to go into it. We've got... We'll do the talks as we go forward. Right, so I've got some comments here, guys, I want to give you all. First of all, a little bit of fan art. We have some new fan art, believe it or not. Not this. We'll read that in a second. Bingo! This comes from... Actually, I don't know who made this. I'm so sorry. This is from the Discord. People have set up a Guild Wars 3 Daily Bingo. Now, look, I like the idea, everybody. I like the idea, but I actually think this is terrible. Because I'm not going to be talking about half this shit. Right, let's see. What have we had on bingo so far? We've had Yearn. Yes. Okay, that's a good one. Dread. No, I haven't talked about Dread, and I probably wouldn't have talked about Dread. The longer the note, that means the more dread. Fersura, we have not talked about. All right. Pay pigs. Okay. Okay, fine. Slop. I haven't mentioned slop. Yeah, I'm angry about losing my word. Right. Slop was a great word, and it's been stolen by all these people. MMO slop. Fashion slop. Guild Wars 3 slop. AI slop. That's the big one, obviously. I like to play friend slop. I'm enjoying some Minecraft slop at the moment, guys, by the way. You know, do I mention slop that much? The door. Come on. The door is just... I'm not going to be talking about the door in like a couple of episodes. That's you lot bringing the door up. All right. Fursonas. Okay, I'll give it to you that I've mentioned my fursona a few times, but I don't really have one. That'll be going away. Coin talk. Okay, fair enough. Ear talk. I haven't talked about my ear since the VOE LP. My ear's all good now. I'm like a superhuman now. I have amazing eyes. I have amazing ears. You know, we're all good. So I don't know about this. I think the true... I would be interested in a real Guild Wars 3 daily bingo. Because there definitely are some things that we go on and on and on about. And in about 10 episodes, you guys are going to be like, fuck this, I'm not watching this anymore. That's what the real bingo will be. Anyway, Arnve wrote this fan fiction right here. That's what this is, Arnve. It's fan fiction. I don't know if he got an AI to do it. But it incorporates it all. So you guys ready? Here we go. One day, WoodenPotatoes was exploring an old library in Ratassoon when he discovered a strange Guild Wars 3 bingo card. Interesting, he said. Let's see where this leads. The first word was yearn. As soon as he read it aloud, a young Asura named Tiki appeared. I yearn to become a great inventor, she said. Then let's go on an adventure. Wait, that's me. Let's go on an adventure. Because I got a deep, manly voice. That's easy views to have a deep voice. Okay. Said WoodenPotatoes. The next square was dread. A spooky shadow crept across the path. Oh no, said Tiki. But when they followed it, they discovered it was only a giant hologram being tested by a local genius. No reason for dread after all. Ho 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 ho. Laughed WoodenPotatoes. Sorry, how do I play and read at once like this? Further along, they met a Fursura named Whisk. Whisk. Unlike most Asura, Whisk proudly wore a fluffy tail, fuzzy ears, and loved sharing art of other furry Asura. Can I join? Asked Whisk. Of course, this is like that cat story from VOE, isn't it? This is like gathering the cats for the boat. Oh, I just realised that never appeared in the latest patch, or it might have. Of course, said Tiki. Someday people will hang up my art and debate whether this art is grounded in reality. Whisk added. Nobody knew how to respond. After all, Tiki thought, how could Fursura be forgotten when they exist before our very eyes? Soon they reached a village, where a farmer shouted, If you want to help finding clues, you must pay the pigs. What? Pay pigs? WoodenPotatoes shouted back. Yes, pay the pigs. His name is Tybalt, the farmer explained. This makes no sense. The pigs accepted apples as payment and eagerly pointed everyone toward the next destination, a castle. Does Tybalt get in there because the LLMs love Tybalt? Is that what this is? Entering the castle, they came across the door. The scary door. Only when all three friends worked together did the ancient door slowly open to reveal a courtyard. Wait, that's me. Somebody must have took a lot of effort to properly close the door, WoodenPotatoes pondered. Inside was a festival full of colourful personas. Artists, adventurers, and dreamers were all showing off creative, animal-inspired characters and costumes. Welcome, said one of the festival organisers. At a game booth, visitors played Coin Talk, where enchanted coins flipped through the air and told funny stories whenever they landed. Nearby, groups gathered for ear talk, sharing ideas, stories, and kind words with one another. As the sun set over Tyria, WoodenPotatoes looked at the completed bingo card. Looks like we found every square and made a lot of friends, added Whisk. Everyone cheered, and the festival continued long into the evening. I don't see the word slop there. We missed the word slop. But yeah, I love the idea of the Guild Wars hosted furry convention. And what, I'll be the spokesperson, will I? I'll be a complete fake. I'll go there on stage, and I'll be dismayed to see that this is what the community has become. You know, you've seen the community devolve over the years of Guild Wars 2. You no longer recognize the people in the room with you. You don't feel like they're your people anymore. You think that's happened with Guild Wars 2? Think about in Guild Wars 3, where it's all just the furry conventions, and we're all in there. Someone's dressed as a Char. Someone's dressed as a Kodan. A short guy is dressed as a Fursura. He's taking advantage of that. And there I am, quietly judging them on the stage in my own costume. Because that's how I get the views. And as I stand out there looking amongst the people in my Tenguin costume, I spot someone else. It's a Q&A. He's there ready to speak into the mic. And he too is wearing a Tenguin costume. But he has a sour look on his face. And he looks at me, and I can tell it's not going to be a nice message. And he looks at what I'm wearing, and he says, "My culture is not your costume." So that's a lovely short story. Thank you very, very much. I don't know whether the bingo's that good. Let's move on, shall we? Jakers 808 says, "Seems like people aren't really open to the possibility of Sylvari, lol." Oh, this is from the Reddit, by the way. I thought I'd mention this. Yeah, there was kind of a cool thread on the WP subreddit. I upvote everyone, no matter what they say. Okay? Upvoting is if you contribute to the conversation. It's not whether I agree or disagree. So what did Jakers have to say? He says, "Seems people aren't really open to the possibility of Sylvari." Which I find interesting because they probably said the same thing about the Asura before they knew they were definitely in the trailer. And this guy had 0 points. Someone had downvoted him. I disagree with this, all right? I upvoted that guy. I said, yes, I think you're 100% right about this. The Asura have more claim to... the Asura have no more claim to Guild Wars 3 than the Sylvari, as far as I'm concerned. If you accept the Asura, you have to accept the Sylvari. A single line about centuries since they were last seen on the surface, and the Rata-Paten hint, that to me is every bit as good as all the stuff we saw about the seeds and the trees. If anything, the stuff about the other trees from the Sylvari is more prevalent in the main story than the Asura clues ever were. Like, look at me. I had forgotten about that one line. That we're talking about a couple of words in the Eye of the North manuscript, talking about how the Asura had been seen on the surface. The Eye of the North manuscript. None of the Guild Wars 2 lore. There's no moments in Guild Wars 2. Think about all the Asura we've met, all the Inquests we've met. They have a city dedicated to them. Think about how much content revolves around the Asura, right? And revolves not just about modern Asura, but historical Asura. The Great Golem Uprising, that guy that got lost in the Asura portals, all the shit that they've done with Zin over the years, right? The cities that we found underground. All that shit, all the Inquest stuff. Inquests are even a major theme in the current expansion. That's a lot of Inquest story. That's a lot of Asura storytelling. And I want you guys to tell me in the comments or in chat right now how many times you've come across an event where the Asura are openly speculating about the last time they were on the surface, or even acknowledging a previous time that they were on the surface. You would be hard pushed to even see them talking about when they were underground. They don't talk about it. It is not something that Arenanet have prioritized or mentioned in any way. There is one tiny little bit of flavor text at the Rata-Paten thing. And there is that thing in the Eye of the North manuscript that means it's possible in lore, right? But it's not like Arenanet ever focused on it. And I think that it's important for those of us who aren't quite so good with the lore or haven't played everything. I think you'll just look at facts on the wiki and you'll just see them in like a very definitive kind of like oh, that's it, that's how it is kind of way. But there's a very big difference between what we factually hear and what devs have been pushing for and have focused on and have framed as interesting mysteries, right? They have never, ever framed the previous time the Asura were on the surface as anything. They have been completely happy to let people totally forget about that. Meanwhile, with the Asura, with the Sylvari, we've had shit about the blighting trees and Heart of Thorns, which, by the way, you know, the blighting trees printing Diarmid and Hareth and stuff in Dragon's Stand are obviously prominent too. We've had voice-acted story that they've actually written for the Sylvari. The Sylvari have had way more about other trees and focused on other trees than the Asura ever had. So yeah, again, I don't really care if the Sylvari are in Guild Wars 3, but they have every much of a claim as the Asura, and I don't see people bitching about the Asura. And the and I said here as well, I said they only concocted the Coden last year in Jandhir Wilds. They're barely better. It was only last year that they gave us the idea that the Coden were in ore. What, if they hadn't done that right before the finish line? But I do acknowledge that Mouth of Zaitan concept art thing suggests to me maybe Arenanet had it as an internal idea for years, which is cool. Speaking of internal ideas, I have another great comment from one of you guys that I want to get to in a second. Here as well, from that same Reddit thread, we have JD Blade. Or maybe a different Reddit thread, actually. Posting here and there, can someone who's better at lore help explain the Sylvari? I know they came from a seed that was planted end of Guild Wars 1, and the Massart were trying to destroy them. Okay, already I don't know what you're talking about, the Massart trying to destroy them. Was there an Eye of the North quest where the White Mantle were attacking that area? Or isn't it the story that the White Mantle had killed Ronan or something? Wasn't that the deal between the two games? But the Massart are not around at this point. Anyway, the Pale Tree was basically a purified dragon champion, basically, in a way. I mean, iffy, but I don't really think we can really call it a dragon champion. But wouldn't there have been Sylvari every dragon cycle since they're dragon minions, which explains why Massart wanted them destroyed? If so, again, no, I think that's confused you a bit there. If so, do we know when the last Sylvari died off after the last cycle, so none are in Guild Wars 1? If not, do we know where the seed came from and why Morgemoth didn't have them before? Okay, so my answer here was this, that in theory, yes, every cycle, Morgemoth might have made blighting trees to print his minions. And what you got to remember, in Heart of Thorns, they steal people, put them in the pods, and then they copy their DNA or whatever to then print more out. So Morgemoth's minions in previous cycles, they would have been like Mordrum Seers, right? And Mordrum Massart and shit like that. Mordrum Lupicus variants. So they may not have looked at all, which, you know, you look at Hareth and Diarmid and stuff, and they all have really wacky, cool ideas. I like the idea that Morgemoth keeps those blueprints cycle to cycle too. And when we look at Hareth, we're looking at some very ancient old race. I've always thought that would be exciting. Anyway, I said most likely, though, it was only a chance this cycle that one got cleansed. And the last 10... it was only a chance that we had a cleansed blighting tree this cycle and the one 10,000 years ago. Because I said dragon corruption in the lore has always been treated as this almost unbreakable, really fucking serious thing. It was a major breakthrough with the Forgotten to be able to actually cleanse Glint, right? And the fact that we cleansed that chicken in Ara, that's a huge deal. And the idea that you're uncleansable is a huge part of the tragedy and the threat of the Elder Dragons. And it was the Forgotten cleansing Glint that ultimately kick-started the whole chain of events that saved the day in the end with Aurene and End of Dragons. You can directly trace the whole plan with Aurene and everything back to Glint, and it was Glint getting cleansed. If anything, the Forgotten are the heroes of the whole thing, really, because they found this cleansing thing. And so I just speculate. My speculation is, look, if other civilizations, if there's been like 100 cycles, right, and other civilizations in those cycles had also figured out how to cleanse Elder Dragons, then why didn't the dominoes fall back then as well? They likely would have, and we wouldn't have got this far. So to my mind, if there are other pale trees, I think there's no question there are other blighting trees. But and there are other seeds that would have planted other ones. But the idea that they've created sapient creatures that are nice that they're cleansed, I would say only this cycle with the Sylvari and Malik's tree, plus maybe the cycle before, which would have been because of the Forgotten. And Guild Wars 3, guys, is far closer to this cycle than the last one. So I think it's totally possible. It's totally possible. No issues there. Okay, here's a question from Zach John, who says, should racial abilities be in Guild Wars 3? Active or passive? And this is what I alluded to a second ago. Combat or non-combat abilities? Do they have a place in an Arenanet philosophy-designed MMO with action combat? Examples of racial abilities from World of Warcraft. As a night elf, you get an ability with a 2-minute cooldown to meld into shadows, gain stealth, and a passive that transforms you into a wisp upon death, increasing speed by 75% while running around as a ghost. As a goblin, you gain the ability with a 2-minute cooldown to perform a rocket jump, and also an ability with a 30-minute cooldown to summon an NPC to open your bank, and a passive that increases your alchemy skill by 5. Racial abilities like these add flavour and identity to character creation, but they can introduce negative feelings to gameplay as well, because players feel forced to go to a certain race. What form would they have to take a place in Guild Wars 3? This is a brilliant question. It's excellently written. It's definitely a question that Arenanet have asked. It's something that we'll see they give us news about. My view is that I love racial skills. I love the difference between the races. I believe in them for a fun RPG. I was really excited about the Guild Wars 2 racial skills, that you get a Charzuka as a Char, you can cool down artillery strikes. As a Norn, you get to transform into a werebear or a were snow leopard or whatever. That shit's amazing. Right, getting golems as an Asura that are kind of like a mount for me. Give it to me. They're all brilliant. And then what did Arenanet do? They got so scared of people re-rolling. They're just so off the deep end, man. All the account binding and all the shallow leveling curve and all that. What I can say from Guild Wars 2 in Arenanet, the modern Arenanet, is they are scared of alts. They don't want you to have to remake characters. And I think in my view, it's not smart. In my view, it's not the way to design an MMO. But it's their mindset. We can't escape from it. So, Guild Wars 2 has racial skills, and they just nerfed the hell out of the efficacy for them, including my baby Technobabble most recently. And it's kind of just dead, man. Like, if Arenanet have the same thoughts going into Guild Wars 3 as they have for Guild Wars 2, I don't think you'll see racial skills. I think they'll be gone. I don't think you're going to see them. But there is that question, isn't there? Is Guild Wars 3 going to go back to the drawing board and decide, no, they really do like them and find a middle ground? There are middle ground approaches that have always been possible. I've talked about adding a training wheel for racials and a 4th specialization that you can sub into so you don't have to reroll. But yeah, it depends. It depends on what Arenanet feel. Are they happy with their sort of vestigial, shitty, appendix-like waste of time racial skills that they have in Guild Wars 2? So they'll just cut them for Guild Wars 3? Because again, a part of it is narrowing the scope, so it's an easy thing to cut. It's an easy thing. Or are they going to say, no, that there's a good thing here. There's a reason we've added them. There's a reason people come from World of Warcraft and expect them, and we're going to try and figure it out this time. So I don't know. I like them. I want them to stay. But Arenanet do have this weird thing about alts. They're very, very fanatical about it. And I would actually argue they're so fanatical about not making you want to do alts, they're actually not celebrating alts anymore. It creates so many problems. It creates so many problems with like metas as well. When you look at like how Guild Wars 2 is structured, do you know why for years all the endgame content was being stacked with like fucking 7 virtuosos? Do you know why it was like that? There's a lot of reasons, obviously. The balance is one thing. But it's because everyone can swap so fucking easily that there's no tension there at all. And it creates so many headaches. Like suddenly, it's far easier for me to discriminate against a party member and tell them, no, you have to play a virtuoso, when I know it's easy to do. than it is in another MMO where there's some barriers to it, right? The community itself just becomes more tolerant. Arenanet think that they're solving a matchmaking issue, but no, they're enabling the community to be more intolerant about the barriers. In other MMOs where it's harder, you know, you might say to your mates, you know what, it's okay if you're a Gale shot for the range DPS. Don't worry about it. Anyway, that's a big old topic there. Big topic. Which we're just going to do a drive-by on for now. That's one of those topics that depresses me a bit. Papa Bungle! Papa Bungle, I thought, was a bit of a genius here. Really, really smart. Listen to this, guys. This is a good one. Well done, Papa Bungle. You get a double thumbs up from me on this. I think this is very well phrased and very well observed. The thing with Malik and his tree is that even though his story was never properly finished, to me and the developer comments about Malik being cut from Heart of Thorns due to time, the answer was almost certainly going to be that he was going to find his tree, and it would be a blighting tree. And you do an event to help him destroy it, and he'd have this huge, tragic disappointment waiting for him. Arenanet never planned for us to go into Heart of Thorns and find another grove of friendly Sylvari who aren't corrupted, just like the Pale Tree. And I think it's wrong to keep clinging to that. The Malik story is deliberately misdirecting you about the nature of Sylvari, so that the truth about Morgemouth hits harder. It's just setting up Sylvari are not their own thing that sprung up from nothing. There is a source. And then all the other clues in game lead you to realizing there's a 6th Elder Dragon, and that's where the Sylvari come from. The early story was setting up clues that Sylvari were Elder Dragon minions who were cleansed, and there's a 6th Elder Dragon out there. It wasn't setting up clues about how in 15 years there'll be a prequel and that there's been a lineage of good modern Sylvari all throughout history just off screen, but they're there and important, and even though we've never heard of them before. Yes, there's unanswered questions about the seed that Ronan found and how it got there, who was protecting it, and whether it was magically cleansed beforehand. But it's so inherently tied to the Elder Dragons, who I'm perfectly happy to be done with. Whether we get a planty race or not, I don't think there needs to be, but Arenanet will lean heavily towards adding one. I'd be much happier for them to be their own thing and leave the story of the Elder Dragons and their minions and their children in Guild Wars 2, aside from maybe a quest or two hinting at Tyrion's future. It just seems wrong-headed to have a new setting that's supposed to be smaller in scale and more intimate, and then have massive swathes of the story dwelling on stuff that Guild Wars 2 already spent a ton of time explaining. There's a lot to dig into here. I'm going to go in reverse, I guess. Should Guild Wars 3 spend a lot of time dwelling on things that were in Guild Wars 2? I understand that... What you need to know is this is an old conversation. This is a long-term thing. The Arenanet's been wrestling with for years, and the community's been wrestling with for years. I want to draw your attention to Season 1, and even the personal story, really, where there was very little GW1 shit. People really hated Season 1, not just because they didn't like the new characters, right? But because it felt like they were constantly ignoring their own setting. There was a big... You can hear it from myself. I say people, I mean me, and many of us felt like Guild Wars 2 didn't really feel like Guild Wars anymore. They weren't touching on so many of the things we were interested and excited about. They were so blinded and excited about their new ideas, their new races, the Sylvari being one of them, that it felt very discoherent, and it wasn't fun. People weren't satisfied with the lore. And the more that Arenanet kept filtering in Guild Wars 1 elements, the more it was to tumultuous applause. For years, the community was like that. And we really felt it in a strong way. It was so thrilling to, like, get those little stories about the White Mantle and the Confessor and stuff, right? Before the later seasons, before there was the Warring Crater, before the Messiah had been talked about in Guild Wars 2 and we had Lazarus. And Arenanet had just basically been screamed at. Can you cover Guild Wars 1 shit, please? That was a very, very strong thing. Now, eventually, I think people started getting sick of it. And eventually there was a new audience of Guild Wars 2 only people that were starting to think this is getting a bit lame. And especially around the End of Dragons, where We were going to Cantha. There were definitely a lot of people now sitting in the room scratching their heads say, I don't care about, can you stop doing the Guild Wars 1 stuff? And the modern audience, I think, has been satisfied enough, and enough of all those other stories have been told, and told poorly in many cases, let's be honest, that that's now finally gone away, right? You don't feel that big GW1 desperation, that terrier connection, right? But I wholeheartedly believe it's going to come back with Guild Wars 3. If Guild Wars 3 comes and tells its own very isolated story, where they really don't want to look at the Elder Dragons, and they really don't want to look at any of these other big topics at all, if they go very isolated again, I think that will be a mistake. I think it doesn't feel like it's going to be a mistake, but I think it will be a mistake because it was a mistake moving into Guild Wars 2. I think the majority of the people in this franchise are going to be interested in those topics still, and they're going to start longing for them, and they're going to start feeling like Arenanet aren't fans of their own franchise. Do you know why it was so fun to see Lazarus in Season 3? Sorry, yeah, in Season 3. Because it felt like Arenanet were remembering their own franchise, and their writers were a fan of their own franchise. It felt very much like for a long while, okay? And a lot of you guys won't remember this. You're not going to agree with me, but I promise this is how it felt. It felt like there were a bunch of like new guys that were there that didn't really know what they were doing, and we don't really like what they're going for. And some of that was the character writing, but a lot of it was about the universe. So if I were Arenanet and I were learning from the history of these games, I would be very careful about going too isolated. I think that Guild Wars 3 should talk, not just a tiny bit, but at least somewhat about the Elder Dragons and the ancient races and the fact that Zaitan is asleep under there. Yes, I know we've ended the dragon cycle in Guild Wars 2, so it doesn't kind of feel like the big ticket item anymore or whatever, but I think Guild Wars 3 needs to acknowledge its own franchise, its own setting, and not turn its back on it in the way that Guild Wars 2 felt like it turned its back on Guild Wars 1. And I'm telling you all of this, and that this is how the community felt, while also still acknowledging that Guild Wars 2's mapped perfectly onto Guild Wars 1, and you got to go to the Temple of the Ages and all that shit. It wasn't enough for people. So, to your last sentiment, that's what I feel like. And so with that in mind, I think it's totally fair to do the Sylvari, and that, yeah, so what? Part of their origin is based on dragon minions, and Guild Wars 3 is not about the dragons. Who cares? It's a quibble. It's a bit of trivia. It doesn't matter. What will define the new Sylvari from their new tree is their new dream and their new nightmare and their new, view and outlook on the world. It's the history of the people in that place. It does the deep Morgemoth is a quibble just as much as the Great Dwarf connection will be a quibble to the dwarves if we get to play as them. I don't think it matters. I don't think that the devs have to talk about it that much, but I think it's important they do a bit. Yeah, Guild Wars 3 is supposed to be a fresh start and a clean break, and to get to some fresh lore that hopefully isn't too retconny and conflicting with itself. And Arenanet want that space, and they want that breath of fresh air. But they can't just abandon the setting. If they're going to abandon the setting, then it's just legally distinct Tyria. And it's not going to feel good again. Right, but you have so much in here that's amazing to talk about. It really, really is so good. And yeah, and with all that in mind, since there is an outstanding mystery about the Cave of Seeds, answering who cleansed them just works perfectly. Right, I want to talk about your views as to what Arenanet were going for when they wrote the Malik story. You give us this interesting theory that they were setting up, not that the Sylvari sprung from nothing. You say that the early story was setting up clues that the Sylvari were dragon minions who were cleansed, and there's a 6-1, and it's supposed to be tragic. Okay, what you've done here is you've looked back, and you've combined everything together, as if it was all one monolithic story that was told, and they had one intent the whole way through. I don't believe that to be the case. I think that there were the writers that were writing Guild Wars 2's launch shit, and they had the idea definitely already of a 6-plant Elder Dragon. And they had the idea of the name Morgemoth, and they put the Easter egg in with Subject Alpha. I think they did that. And I think they also knew that Malik was going to have some connection to that dragon. But I think they only had a vague inkling about it. I don't think it was all set up. I don't think the idea was that it was just going to be this tragic thing where he was always going to find a blighting tree. I don't think they'd conceived of a blighting tree. I don't think any of those details existed. I think they just created some hooks for themselves that they were going to deal with later. And one of the reasons why I say that is because if they had figured it all out, I don't think you would have written the Malik story that way at all. You would have had Malik go mad and transform into like a thorn husk or something, or into a thorn wolf. And they would have been a little bit more clear that, hey, Sylvari from the other trees are getting fucked up for some reason. That isn't what they did. They suggested that these were sapient, pleasant, nice warriors and heroes of Tyria. So your understanding that they were never setting up there could be another happy pale tree, I think originally they were. But I think when they got to conceiving Heart of Thorns, they changed their mind. And then it becomes what you've said. And then it was, oh yeah, this will be really cool. Malik can go there. We can find Malik. We can see that his tree's been destroyed. I think you're 100% right at that point. Once we get into the Heart of Thorns storytelling and the Heart of Thorns writing, that is what they were doing. But at launch, I don't believe that that's the case. I think you've just conflated the two. And so then that brings me to the next thing. Okay, I think you're right. You're right, that's what they were going with Heart of Thorns. And then obviously this all gets even more complicated because they had to cut the whole fucking thing out of Heart of Thorns anyway. We didn't get the Nightmare Cult story. We didn't get Malik. It all got removed, right? Which just makes this all so gut-wrenching, right? But I think you're right. I don't think it matters, though. I think there's an important thing to understand about storytelling in products like this. Any kind of long-term media, whether that's a TV show, whether that's a book series, whether that's a game as a service, right? Or just any long-running franchise. It doesn't actually matter what they originally had in mind. They can co-opt and change and shift and shake things in any way they like. You might be right that the idea of Malik was to find a blighting tree and that really they're only... It doesn't matter, though, because they never actually revealed that. That is not the law. And it is completely within Arenanet's rights, behind closed doors now, to change that mystery to whatever they want, to have a new intent. Right? As long as it's not a retcon or a contradiction that was actually been written in the game, the truth is these stories were not put into Heart of Thorns, they were cut. So, what do they have? They have some outstanding mysteries, and if they can find a compelling way to spin that now that Mordremoth's dead and gone anyway, then do it. And that's what they will do. And that happens 1,000 times all the time. I think quite often, and I'm not saying that Papa Bungle is doing this, but I see a lot of people online, they drop their comments and their thoughts, and they think that the law is like this immutable thing. They treat the law like a Bible. They treat it like... you shouldn't even treat a Bible like a Bible, by the way. It's written by people, and it's fucking been translated a million different times over the years. And all right, let's not get too anti-religious here. But no, you shouldn't treat a Bible like a Bible. But it's like... Arenanet will be fucking and changing with it all the time. And they'll twist it. It does not dictate the gameplay that they put into the game. It does not dictate anything. It's much more flexible than I think you guys realize, and they could write this. They could absolutely write it that there's lots of trees, but even still, you know, just the law says that there's a cave of seeds. Presumably, they're all cleansed, and they all have the capacity to be good or bad. They all have the capacity to think for themselves, right? And the ones at the Grove, just here to the south, they had Ronan and the tablet. And Malik's tree presumably has its own things guiding it. There's also the idea, by the way, that Malik is just a complete blank slate because he was isolated from the tree. But that then conflicts with the Mordrem story. Because the whole point of Mordremoth is that he's infecting people who have isolated themselves. So I tend to think that it is a purified seed, and it's a purified tree. And not only can they do another tree in Guild Wars 2, but they can do other trees in Guild Wars 3. Explaining where those seeds came from and where that cave came from. I think there was another thing in there. Yeah, so sorry, when you say this line, you say it wasn't setting up clues about how in 15 years there'd be a prequel. Obviously not. But that doesn't stop them. Obviously they never had any 15-year-long plans for a fucking prequel. Obviously not. You know, if Guild Wars 3 reveals who E is somehow, I don't know how it would, like he's an immortal or some shit. It doesn't matter. Obviously, that they're on the record as having said that they don't know what it was about. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they had a grand plan or not. That's what I'm trying to express. Fantastic comment. We got 2 more here, guys. Here's one. This was a DM to me from Leos. Hey WP, back when Guild Wars 2 Guru was online, I ran a thread with thousands of responses. Back to their roots, the Sylvari redesign. And a similar one for the Mesmer. The majority of the ideas in these threads ended up in-game. I would love to chat with you about this as we talk about the lead up to Guild Wars 3 and the parallels with the launch for Guild Wars 2. I'm obviously not trying to devalue the work of Kristen Perry or Arenanet. I'm just mentioning that the ideas in the threads were also in-game before the official announcements. That's very interesting. I don't remember that exact thread. I remember obviously there being hundreds of threads with hundreds of thousands of messages or feedback everywhere. I don't remember a thread where the devs were specifically doing a back and forth with the community about the Sylvari. I have to be honest, I'm a bit of a cynic about this take. I tend to think they didn't look too closely at what the community wanted. I mean, maybe. I think I'm going to be a bit mean here. Leos, I think if you've come for the past 14 years, come away with the opinion. You've come for the last 14. You've come away for the last 14 years with the opinion that you had a hand in the creation of the Sylvari because of that thread. I'm a bit cynical about that. I don't know. But what do you want to talk about? You think that the Arenanet might do the same thing, that they'll look deeply at what individual players do and say, and I mean, maybe there could have been. It's a thought. It's a thought to wonder, you know, whether we'll be able to provide feedback on the Fursura, right? There you go. There you go, guys. There you can have it for your fucking little bingo card. There I just said Fursura, finally. But where are we? We're an hour and 40 minutes in. Oh, God. I'm not going to be able to do that news today. We're going to have to do it tomorrow. I didn't even get many comments here. This is 8 comments. Okay, Sanctus Obscurum. Okay, and this is amazing as well. This is brilliant. This is someone taking me to task. Someone holding me accountable here. I have been fucking up the lore a little bit here, by the way, in some minor ways. This is an epic comment, all right? I'm going to bend into the trough and eat... Well, this isn't really eating humble pie, but... Sanctus Obscurum says, WP, read about the Nightmare Court. The Nightmare, the Dream of Dreams. The Nightmare wasn't Morgemoth's version of the Dream. It's separate to both Morgemoth and the Dream. The Morgem do not awaken from the Nightmare. The Nightmare Court are able to oppose Morgemoth, just as the Dreamers were able to oppose Morgemoth. Cadian created the Nightmare. Well, by the way, I don't think you're right to say that he created the Nightmare. Nightmare Courtiers still have free will. He created the court. Nightmare Courtiers still have free will, and they are able to become soundless, severing their connection to the Nightmare. There's also mystery about what protects the Sylvari and Nightmare Courtiers from Morgemoth's influence. The Pale Tree suggests she did it. Later, Timey suggests that the Sylvari are just straight up immune to dragon branding due to being minions. However, Aurene is able to brand Kaith. But Aurene, yeah, that was a weird moment. The whole Kaith becoming branded thing was so weird, wasn't it? They didn't even really do anything with it. That was a weird one. I wonder if that was related to the mobile game, the Zephyra thing or something. Right, you're right. Okay, so let's just be clear here, because I definitely got those wires crossed in the intervening years. You typed me that message. I went to the wiki just to verify what you were saying. You're totally right. Let's all remember what happens, guys. In Heart of Thorns, Foulane's kicking around. And you say to her, the commander literally says, or Ritlock says to her, yo, what the fuck are you doing? I thought you'd be fighting with the dragon. And Foulane very explicitly says, fuck you, pig. The Nightmare Court desire freedom, nothing more. Morgemoth doesn't give us freedom. He's just as bad as the Dream and the Tablet. No, we fight for ourselves. We fight for our own thing. And that is true. And that was a compelling aspect of the Nightmare Court. It's easy to forget this shit because obviously all of these stories, the bulk and the meat of these stories was cut. And the thing is, it's easy to conflate. You might also remember, hold on though, don't we fight Foulane, Morgem Foulane as a fucking boss right near the end of the game? Giant Spider Foulane? Isn't she chasing us throughout the story? You're right, but the specifics there are that Foulane dies Morgemoth takes the body and then repurposes her corpse, which kind of gives the weird impression that it's Faolain that's fallen into the nightmare. But that was never Faolain falling into the nightmare while she was alive. The story was always... And it also is easy to forget and get complicated because, yes, many regular Sylvari do fall to the nightmare and become the Mordrim Guard, and they change their bodies, right? And remember, outside Ratanovis, you find that Sylvari that's panicking and freaking out and saying, oh my god, I'm a Mordrim Guard. And doesn't he become one right before you? And we meet lots of Sylvari in the later years who had been Mordrim Guards and had done horrible things. But that's just, the idea of that was like that they were weak-willed Sylvari, right? That they were hearing the voices. Even you as the commander hear the voice. Canuck hears the voice. Everyone hears the voice, but like we kind of put it up to weak-willedness. It's not just because you're Nightmare Court. Many in the Nightmare Court did not turn. And that was what was so fucking cool about Heart of Thorns. I love a fucking three-way. Who doesn't love a three-way? You got Morgemoth fighting against the Sylvari, our Sylvari, and the Nightmare Court, and you got the Nightmare Court fighting against our Sylvari and the Morgemoth. It's awesome. That's some like Halo shit right there with the Flood, the Covenant, and the Master Chief and the Marines. I love that shit, and of course it's a crime. It's so oh guys, Heart of Thorns. Heart of Thorns, my baby. And then why don't you make season 3 about those missing stories? Why rush into fucking Balthazar? Whatever. Anyway, yeah. My thinking about this, we got to talk about Guild Wars 3, right? I tend to think that these were purified sea and the Soundless, right? The Soundless who actively disconnect themselves from everything. They lost their minds and became Mordrim influenced very fast because they had neither dream nor nightmare. The nightmare is not fun. Okay, and here's another thing that complicates it though. It's easy also to think of the nightmare as Morgemoth for this reason. And that is that when you are in the dream, in the tutorial, you fight against the nightmare in the dream. There's a nightmare-y section of it, and it takes the form of a dragon. And that's the shadow of the dragon that later turns out to be a champion of Morgemoth when it attacks the Pale Tree in Season 2, the tangible, real one. You know, attacks the Pale Tree, and then it's the final boss of Season 2. And you're fighting it right around when Wynn drops the bomb that they're all Mordrim minions. So yeah, it's all fucking complex. It's very easy to trick you. But no, the nightmare is just its own thing. My understanding of it was always that, you know, the Sylvari feed their own experiences into the dream as they live. It's this symbiotic thing. So if Sylvari have horrible experiences, horrible aspects of the dream build up, and that's what they call the nightmare. And that's why the Nightmare Court torture other Sylvari and fuck up other Sylvari, because they're just trying to grow those aspects of the dream so that more of them will be born interested in those aspects. There's a lot about the Nightmare Court that would be cool, because Faolain's looking for freedom, but she's substituting one master for another. She's seeing that she doesn't want to be a slave to the tablet, but she's becoming a slave to the dark thoughts, and none of these stories were really told very well in the end. Rip Cadian. All right, there you go. So there you have it. Sorry. So what would that mean for Guild Wars 3 Sylvari? I think they have their own version of the dream, which is, you know, very different experiences have fed into it, and different positive ones and different negative ones. And I do like the idea. I know I argued that they shouldn't just be Melandru minions, but I do like the idea that they don't have a Ventari tablet, but they have like God scriptures and shit. I think that would be really interesting. Wouldn't it? Or like forgotten teachings, maybe? You guys aren't titillated at all about another variety of Sylvari that have completely different tenets at the basis of their Sylvari. That can be completely different to Ventaris, right? What did Ventari teach us? Let's have a quick look here. Just still salty how Cadian was done dirty in Guild Wars 2. Yeah, Cadian was amazing, and then he just... The lore pre-release was amazing, and then what did they do? They just killed him off in one of the fucking parts. Outrageous. Let's go up to Ronan's Bower. Can we read the entire thing? Here's where you're going to see my lack of chops. Oh, this is taking me down. That's not good. Wait, you can't skip these cutscenes anymore? I thought you could. All right, fuck it. We won't go. Okay, I can't remember how to get up there. No, I don't want to fail at this. Let's go up. No, this is not right. Top layer. Top waypoint on the top layer. None of those. None of those. Hello? Okay, Reckoner's waypoint. No, that's still too low. What the fuck? Upper Commons. And then we want to go to... Not that. This one? Yeah, here we go. The Umphalos Chamber. First of all, think about this. The avatar of the tree is not like a lady Sylvari. The avatar of the tree is... It could be a man, or it could be like an animal. What if the avatar of the tree is a spider? What if they're spider Sylvari that are obsessed with Arachnia for some reason or something, right? You guys don't see how they can twist this shit and do fun, strange, new reconfiguration? Wouldn't that be fun? Okay, we got the Ventari's tablet, right? What? It's not Ventari's tablet. Live life well and fully, waste nothing. What if it's like, yeah, take what you can get, brother? Yeehaw! We can get the oil. You run that shower for an extra 10 minutes. You do you, right? Do not fear difficulty. Hard ground makes stronger roots. What if they say, fuck it? The problem is, okay, here's where you'll see my chops as a world builder. All I would know how to do is like lamely twist these in half. Like do the antonym. But I'm sure there's a fun way that, you know, maybe they have something else. Maybe they don't have a tablet of 12 things. Maybe they have like 3 things. And they really care about those 3 things. And I cannot off the top of my head imagine what those 3 things would be. I don't know. I don't write the stories, I just critique them. Do you know what I mean? Alright, okay, guys, it's 2 hours. I have to stop here. That's Guild Wars 3 Daily for today. Thank you very much for watching. That's a lot of enlightening, crazy, long, big conversations. The thumbnail is now pathetic and terrible for this video. I was going to do... The Arenanet have a post that says our philosophy for Guild Wars 2. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it on the next one. We kind of had a whole extra section here because of you guys donating. Thank you so much to everyone who just donated. You guys just gave us 10% of our goal in a single day. That is nuts. That is incredibly commendable. I don't know how much that's going to go down as we go forwards. But, yeah, thank you, everyone. It's a crazy thing we're going to try and build a PC in the middle of the Rampocalypse, but we're all in the same boat, right? We're all fucked with it, so there you have it. Thank you, guys. Tomorrow, this seems weird to say, but I'll probably, hopefully, get less donations, and we won't have such a long Q&A section at the start, and I can actually read this article. I'm going to turn this off now, and I'm going to change the title for this video, and the description for this video, and the thumbnail for this video, and we'll use those tomorrow. You donated slop, so you think that counts as a donation? Maybe. I feel horrible for the live chat as well, by the way, guys. I have basically paid no attention to you all. Sorry about that. If there are any comments, if you want my attention, drop them. More questions. Don't forget, the big topic, really, that I want to cover is new races. That's the big thing. That's the next video that we're going to spin off. I want to talk about other races. I'm going to do like my top 10 races. Keep giving me your candidates for that, your thoughts on whether Guild Wars 3 can have other new races. And I'll compile those all together. Thank you, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Have a wonderful day now. I know I certainly have been. This has been lovely. And I'll see you next time, guys. For Guild Wars 3 Daily. Bye-bye. I just gotta say, right? Okay, look, you're gonna laugh at me about this, right? Because it's edgy and all that shit, right? I said a spider avatar. Okay. I fucking love that idea. You know how... Listen to this. Listen. I just thought of this while we were watching the outro. That's when the good meditation happens. Let's just say that the Sylvari are Guild Wars 2's like elf race, right? They're sort of elfy type people. What do most fantasy settings do? They have the high elves, the nice elves, the light elves or whatever, right? And they usually have like dark elves or blood elves or the drow or whatever, right? There's usually like an evil version. The Sylvari in this game are like really nice and happy and flowery and all that shit. What if Guild Wars 3 gives us the dark side of them, right? How a blighting tree... it can be cleansed of Morgemoth. It's got nothing to do with Morgemoth. But its dream has developed for so long and become so cynical and twisted and warped that the majority of its people are the more begrudging type. They're the more, and they're shaped a bit different. Maybe they do have a fucking spider avatar. Maybe they have the Great Cocoon or something. Maybe they symbiotically live among spiders in their tree that weave their webs. Oh, that's so edgy. I love that shit. I just want to propose that. The edgy Sylvari. Okay, there you go. There's a little outro for some of you guys. We had those. It was implied to be the Tower of Nightmares, with Ensis being the Traherne of his tree. That's a good point, actually. Yeah, the Tower of Nightmares is an interesting point. It basically is the fallen pale tree, isn't it? As they were trying to construct it. Would the opposite of a flowery Sylvari be more of a fungal one? Maybe. I think that's an idea. I love the idea of a fungal race. I think I would just position those as a totally different one, though. I think you can have, like, mushroom people as their own... You know, we talk about Guild Wars 3 should be allowed to explore its own ideas and its own peoples and stuff, and for that, that's a good example of that to me. Fuck it, have a whole new race. Have the mushroom people. You know, as its own phenotype. We can play plants. We can play people. We don't have bugs. We don't have undead. We don't have fungus people. You know, there are some big categories. Oh, that's true. There are fungus hairstyles for Sylvari. That's true. That's true. A termite, you think, would be the opposite for a pale tree? Oh, yeah, termite. Oh, guys, don't you think that's... I've maintained through all of these that I don't give a shit about actually putting Sylvari in Guild Wars 2. But evil Sylvari? Evil Sylvari I can do. You want buff ones? I don't know, man. Alright, that is it. Just have a little think about that. How about you guys have your own dream of dreams on that topic? Oh my god, cleansed by Abaddon and forgotten with his defeat? You've just raised a really good point. Yeah, this whole thing about no one remembers the Sylvari. If the Sylvari are associated with Abaddon, and the Arachnia connection can be there a little bit as well, if they do that, then it explains why everyone forgot about them in a big way, because everything to do with Abaddon was purged, right? Oh my god! It writes itself.